What if the greatest discoveries of our modern age are not discoveries at all, but rediscoveries? What if, long before particle accelerators smashed atoms apart and equations bent the fabric of reality, there were civilizations who touched the very same mysteries with nothing more than stone, symbol, and silence? Across deserts, jungles, and mountaintops, remnants of ancient worlds whispered to us in a language half forgotten. Temples aligned perfectly with the stars, monuments that defy explanation, myths that speak of invisible energies weaving creation together. To many, these are fragments of superstition, the dreams of a primitive mind struggling to make sense of existence. But to others, they are echoes of a knowledge so profound, it may rival, or even surpass, the quantum theories shaking modern science today. Imagine standing before the pyramids of Giza as the first rays of dawn strike their limestone faces. To the untrained eye, they are tombs, relics of kings long gone. To the curious mind, however, they are more than architecture. They are questions carved in stone. Their alignment to celestial cycles, their mathematical precision, their ability to endure for millennia. Could these structures have been designed as more than monuments? Could they be codices of reality itself, silent witnesses to a deeper understanding of the universe? Modern physics tells us that reality is not solid, not stable, but a shimmering dance of probability. Particles appear and vanish, entangled across vast distances, shaped by the simple act of being observed. What strikes us revolutionary, what bends the logic of our time, might not have been so alien to those who built their myths around cosmic eggs, world serpents, and sacred vibrations. Where we speak of quantum fields, they speak of divine breath. Where we describe entanglement, they told of threads of fate. One language mathematical, the other mythical, yet both reaching toward the same hidden truth. Reality is not what it seems. And here lies the contrast that draws us deeper. On one side stands the scientist, armed with instruments and formulas, skeptical of anything beyond the measurable. On the other stands the sage, wrapped in story and ritual, claiming knowledge not of the laboratory, but of the inner vision. One insists on data, the other on experience. But what if these are not opposing forces? What if they are reflections of the same mirror, fragments of a greater tapestry of understanding? The myths of Sumer spoke of beings descending from the heavens with knowledge of the stars. The Vedic hymns describe the universe as a woven sound, a vibration resonating through all things. Egyptian texts hinted at an invisible force that guided the soul through eternity. To modern ears, these may sound poetic, metaphorical, or even fantastical. Yet what if these stories were not simply myths, but memories? Memories encoded in narrative, carrying truths too vast to preserve in numbers alone. Consider this unsettling possibility. Perhaps the ancients saw what we see, but through different eyes. Perhaps they touched the hidden structure of reality, not through machines, but through consciousness itself. Meditation, ritual, altered states. Could these have been their particle accelerators, their gateways into the invisible? To dismiss such notions is easy. To wonder is far harder. And yet, it is a wonder that has always driven human progress. The runes left behind are not only physical, but symbolic. Spirals etched into stone, fractal patterns repeated in sacred art, alignments to solstices and equinoxes. Were these the fingerprints of cultures obsessed with order, or subtle hints that they perceived a resonance between earth, sky, and mind? Modern physics reveals harmony in chaos, equations hidden within turbulence, patterns within randomness. Ancient builders carved their own harmonies into the landscape. The question lingers, coincidence or communication across time? Even the myths of catastrophe, floods, fires, and lost golden ages hint at cycles of memory and forgetting. If knowledge once existed, what if the greatest discoveries of our modern age are not discoveries at all, but rediscoveries? What if, long before particle accelerators smashed atoms apart and equations bent the fabric of reality. There were civilizations who touched the very same mysteries with nothing more than stone, symbol, and silence. Across deserts, jungles, and mountaintops, remnants of ancient worlds whispered to us in a language half forgotten. Temples aligned perfectly with the stars, monuments that defy explanation, myths that speak of invisible energies weaving creation together. To many, these are fragments of superstition, the dreams of a primitive mind struggling to make sense of existence. But to others, they are echoes of a knowledge so profound, it may rival, or even surpass, the quantum theories shaking modern science today. Imagine standing before the pyramids of Giza as the first rays of dawn strike their limestone faces. To the untrained eye, they are tombs, relics of kings long gone. To the curious mind, however, they are more than architecture. They are questions carved in stone. Their alignment to celestial cycles, their mathematical precision, their ability to endure for millennia. Could these structures have been designed as more than monuments? Could they be codices of reality itself, silent witnesses to a deeper understanding of the universe? Modern physics tells us that reality is not solid, not stable, but a shimmering dance of probability. Particles appear and vanish, entangled across vast distances, shaped by the simple act of being observed. What strikes us revolutionary, what bends the logic of our time, might not have been so alien to those who built their myths around cosmic eggs, world serpents, and sacred vibrations. Where we speak of quantum fields, they speak of divine breath. Where we describe entanglement, they told of threads of fate. One language mathematical, the other mythical, yet both reaching toward the same hidden truth. Reality is not what it seems, and here lies the contrast that draws us deeper. On one side stands the scientist, armed with instruments and formulas, skeptical of anything beyond the measurable. On the other stands the sage, wrapped in story and ritual, claiming knowledge not of the laboratory, but of the inner vision. One insists on data, the other on experience. But what if these are not opposing forces? What if they are reflections of the same mirror, fragments of a greater tapestry of understanding? The myths of Sumer spoke of beings descending from the heavens with knowledge of the stars. The Vedic hymns describe the universe as a woven sound, a vibration resonating through all things. Egyptian texts hinted at an invisible force that guided the soul through eternity. To modern ears, these may sound poetic, metaphorical, or even fantastical. Yet what if these stories were not simply myths, but memories? Memories encoded in narrative, carrying truths too vast to preserve in numbers alone. Consider this unsettling possibility. Perhaps the ancients saw what we see, but through different eyes. Perhaps they touched the hidden structure of reality, not through machines, but through consciousness itself. Meditation, ritual, altered states. Could these have been their particle accelerators, their gateways into the invisible? To dismiss such notions is easy. To wonder is far harder. And yet, it is a wonder that has always driven human progress. The runes left behind are not only physical, but symbolic. Spirals etched into stone, fractal patterns repeated in sacred art, alignments to solstices and equinoxes. Were these the fingerprints of cultures obsessed with order, or subtle hints that they perceived a resonance between earth, sky, and mind? Modern physics reveals harmony in chaos, equations hidden within turbulence, patterns within randomness. Ancient builders carved their own harmonies into the landscape. The question lingers, coincidence or communication across time? Even the myths of catastrophe, floods, fires, and lost golden ages hint at cycles of memory and forgetting. If knowledge once existed, it may have been shattered, scattered, and left as fragments for future generations to puzzle over. In this light, our modern breakthroughs are less a climb into the unknown and more a return. a piecing together of a puzzle already glimpsed by those who came before. Doubt, of course, is natural. Skeptics remind us that myths are myths, symbols are not science. And to project quantum mechanics onto ancient carvings is to indulge in fantasy. But believers counter that to dismiss without exploration is to blind ourselves to the very mystery that drives inquiry. Between these poles of doubt and faith lies a fertile ground, the ground of possibility, where curiosity thrives, and it is in that space of possibility that we begin this journey. For this is not a tale of certainties. It is not a claim that the ancients had particle colliders or quantum equations etched into clay tablets. Instead, it is an exploration of echoes, of resonances, of bridges between what we now call science and what they once called sacred. The ancients may not have spoken in the precise language of quarks and photons, but their stories, symbols, and monuments may carry shadows of truths we are only beginning to articulate. Picture, for a moment, the human story not as a straight line, but as a spiral. Knowledge emerges, is lost, is rediscovered, each cycle bringing us closer to the same horizon from a different angle. Today, we marvel at entanglement, uncertainty, and quantum fields. Perhaps the ancients marveled at the same mysteries, cloaked in different words, expressed through stone rather than silicon. If so, then our task is not simply to look forward, but also to listen backward, to see in myth not superstition but metaphor, in ruins not debris but designed on. And so we begin, not with proof, but with possibility. A possibility, in some sense, they are not two, but one, connected beyond locality. Finally, at the core of the mystery lies the observer effect. At the quantum level, particles do not exist as fixed things until measured. They linger in a haze of probabilities, a wave of possibilities, collapsing into actuality only when observed. What does it mean that reality depends on the act of observation? Is consciousness itself woven into the fabric of physics, or are we merely misinterpreting a strange mathematical truth? Here we encounter the fracture line between science and speculation. Physicists construct equations, test experiments, and analyze results with rigor, caution, and humility. Mystics, philosophers, and seekers hear in these same discoveries echoes of their oldest teachings. That reality is illusion, that mind shapes matter, that all things are interconnected. One insists on instruments, the other on intuition. One speaks in numbers, the other in symbols. And yet, both stand in awe before the same paradox. The universe is not what it seems. To grasp the magnitude of this, imagine our daily world infused with quantum strangeness. A chair might be both in one place and another until you looked at it. Your thoughts could alter the state of reality around you. Two people on opposite sides of the planet might share an invisible link, instantaneous and unbroken. These images sound impossible, even absurd, and yet at the subatomic level, they are not fantasy, but fact. The challenge lies in bridging this microscopic truth with the macroscopic world we inhabit. The deeper physicists dug, the stranger the landscape became. Quantum tunneling allows particles to pass through barriers they should never cross. Virtual particles pop in and out of existence in empty space. Entire fields of energy ripple beneath the apparent void, suggesting that nothing is not empty, but alive with potential. The vacuum itself hums with creation. No wonder many of the pioneers of quantum theory, Niels Bohr, Max Planck, Erwin Schrödinger, found themselves drifting into philosophy, mysticism, and metaphor. Schrödinger famously imagined a cat, alive and dead at once until observed. Bohr compared quantum paradoxes to Zen koans, riddles meant to break the grip of logic. Planck went further, suggesting that consciousness might be fundamental, the root from which matter itself arises. For every attempt to reduce the mystery only deepened. Here's the crux. Quantum mechanics works. It powers lasers, microchips, medical imaging, and the technologies that define our modern lives. And yet, beneath its practical triumphs, no one can fully explain what it means. The equations describe reality with astonishing accuracy, but they do not resolve its strangeness. Is the quantum world a realm of infinite parallel realities, branching at every possibility? Is it evidence that reality is holographic, projected from deeper dimensions? Or is it simply a sign that our current understanding is too limited, waiting for the next revolution? The contrast is stark. On one side, the cold clarity of mathematics, endlessly verified by experiment. On the other, the uncanny resonance with spiritual traditions. The Buddhist void alive with potential, the Vedic vibration of creation, the Hermetic maxim, as above, so below. To dismiss this resonance is tempting, but to explore it may open new dimensions of meaning. Perhaps the ancients, through symbol and story, touched truths that modern science now rediscovers with equations and experiments. And so, the foundation is laid. Quantum reality is not a niche curiosity, but the very bedrock of existence, reshaping our understanding of what it means to be real. At this threshold, we face the same question that has haunted Einstein, Bohr, and every thinker since. What is reality, and what role do we play in it? As we move forward, the path bends back toward the ancients. Did they, through myth, ritual, and architecture, encode insights into the invisible structure of reality? Were their symbols simply metaphors for a chaotic world, or deliberate attempts to capture the essence of what quantum science is only now articulating? To explore this, we must turn our gaze from the laboratory to the temple, from the chalkboard to the stone carving. We must ask not only how the ancients explained their world, but whether their explanations carried reflections of the same mystery we now call quantum mechanics. When we look at the ruins of ancient civilizations, we see stone, dust, and silence. But behind the silence lies a question that refuses to fade. Did these cultures know more than we think? Were they, in some hidden way, closer to the great mysteries of the cosmos, closer even than we are with our telescopes and quantum equations? Archaeology gives us dates, measurements, and stratigraphy. Yet, scattered across the globe, there are monuments and artifacts that seem to whisper of knowledge unaccounted for. Knowledge that feels too advanced, too precise, too mysterious for the times in which they were built. Let us begin with the pyramids of Egypt. Rising from the desert, these monuments are more than tombs. They are puzzles carved in stone. The Great Pyramid of Giza, in particular, has long unsettled scholars. Its base is almost perfectly square, aligned with true north to an accuracy that rivals modern instruments. The ratio of its height to its base perimeter approximates the value of pi. Some researchers argue coincidence. Others suggest intention, a deliberate encoding of mathematical constants into architecture. Even more curious is its orientation to the stars. Ancient texts speak of the pyramid as a mirror of heaven, and when reconstructed through astronomical modeling, shafts inside the pyramid align with Orion's belt and Sirius, stars tied to the Egyptian myth of Osiris and Isis. Was this merely symbolic architecture, or does it reveal an ancient awareness of celestial mechanics and cosmic alignment? Egyptologists insist it was religious. Mystics insist it was scientific. Between them lingers the suspicion that perhaps it was both. Travel east to Mesopotamia, cradle of civilization. Here, the ziggurats rose, terraced temples said to bridge heaven and earth. Clay tablets show advanced knowledge of planetary motion, eclipses, and calendars that rivaled later Greek astronomy. The Sumerians charted Venus with uncanny precision, predicting its cycles over centuries. Were these merely the results of patient observation? Or did they hold a deeper method of mapping the skies, a lost science embedded within ritual and myth? Further east in the Indus Valley, The ruins of Mohenjo-Daro reveal a city astonishing in its design. Straight streets, advanced drainage, uniform bricks. Some argue this points to a systematic knowledge of engineering. But the mystery deepens when certain artifacts emerge. Small seals etched with symbols not yet deciphered, and figurines that seem to suggest advanced metallurgy. The civilization vanished without clear reason. Some scholars whisper of catastrophe. Others suspect knowledge lost to time. Could fragments of their wisdom have seeded myths across Asia? Then, there are the enigmas of South America. In Peru, the stones of Sacsayhuaman defy easy explanation. Cyclopean blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with such precision that not even a razor blade can slide between them. Mainstream archaeology attributes this to skilled stone carving and patient labor. Yet others ask, how could people without advanced tools shape, transport, and assemble such megaliths? Were these techniques of engineering now forgotten, or something more? Technologies we no longer possess. And above the plains of Nazca stretch the famous lines, vast geoglyphs etched into the earth, visible only from the sky. Figures of animals, spirals, and geometric patterns span kilometers, their purpose uncertain. To some, they were ritual pathways. To others, messages to the gods. But one question hovers. Why design shapes only visible in their full form from above, when flight was supposedly unknown? Coincidence or whisper of knowledge yet unaccounted for? Even more startling are the ruins beneath the sea. Off the coast of Japan lies Yonaguni, a massive underwater structure resembling step terraces, with right angles and pillars that suggest intentional design. Some insist it is natural geology. Others argue it is the sunken memory of a civilization older than recorded history. If true, it would rewrite humanity's timeline, pointing to a forgotten age where the line between myth and history blurs. Across the world, myths of lost civilizations echo. Plato spoke of Atlantis, a mighty island empire that sank beneath the waves in a single day and night. Scholars call it allegory. Yet similar tales appear in Hindu texts, Polynesian legends, and Native American stories. Floods, cataclysms, lost worlds swallowed by the sea. Could these myths preserve memories of real disasters, fragments of civilizations erased by time but remembered in story? The question intensifies when we turn to artifacts that defy expectation. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a shipwreck off Greece, is a device of gears and dials dating back over 2,000 years. Often called the world's first computer, it could predict eclipses and planetary positions with stunning accuracy. Historians say it was a unique achievement, centuries ahead of its time. But if one such device existed, could others have been lost? And what knowledge fed its creation? In Baghdad, clay jars dating back 2 millennia have been proposed as primitive batteries, the so-called Baghdad batteries. Though disputed, they hint at experiments with electricity long before Benjamin Franklin flew his kite. In India, Sanskrit texts like the Vaimanika Shastra describe flying chariots called vimanas, capable of traversing the skies. Historians label them myth. Yet enthusiasts suggest they may preserve distorted memories of technologies long forgotten. Skeptics caution restraint. They argue that mysteries of engineering, alignment, and myth can be explained by human ingenuity, cultural symbolism, and coincidence. The Great Pyramid, they note, is a marvel of geometry achievable with basic surveying tools. The Nazca lines may have been mapped with ropes and stakes. The Antikythera mechanism, while advanced, arose from a tradition of Greek craftsmanship, not from some hidden global science. And yet, the skeptics' explanations do not dissolve the wonder. Instead, they sharpen the tension. For even if every anomaly has a rational explanation, we are left with the undeniable truth. Ancient civilizations achieved wonders beyond expectation. with precision, artistry, and vision that still astonish us. Whether through lost techniques, intuitive genius, or something more, they touch the level of knowledge that humbles modern arrogance. But then comes the deeper question. Is it possible that these civilizations were not just architects of stone, but also guardians of hidden knowledge, knowledge of the cosmos itself? Could their myths, symbols, and monuments encode truths not yet rediscovered? Consider the recurring theme of vibration, resonance, and sound. From the Egyptian myths of creation by word, to the Vedic hymns of Om, to the suggestion that massive stones may have been moved. Through sound or resonance, these whispers converge. Modern physics speaks of the universe as vibration, of strings vibrating at the heart of matter. Could it be that ancient peoples intuited, through ritual and experience, the same truth science is only now uncovering? Others suggest that what we call technology need not be mechanical. Perhaps their hidden knowledge was of consciousness itself. Shamanic traditions across continents speak of altered states where the fabric of reality shifts. Could the ancients have mastered inner technologies, ways of perceiving and interacting with the cosmos that defy material explanation? If so, their monuments might not be machines, but markers, gateways, reminders that the greatest technology lies not in stone, but in mind. Here, the two lenses collide once more. The historian insists on evidence, artifacts, and cautious interpretation. The seeker sees patterns, synchronicities, and resonance across cultures. One says coincidence. The other says connection. Perhaps both are right and both incomplete. For what if humanity's story is not linear but cyclical? What if civilizations rise, achieve heights of knowledge, then fall, leaving only ruins and myths as clues? In this view, our science is not the first, but a rediscovery, part of a larger cycle of remembering and forgetting. If so, then the ruins are not just relics, but warnings. That knowledge without wisdom may always end in silence, and so we arrive at a precipice. Ancient civilizations leave us two legacies: the tangible, their stones, artifacts, and calendars, and the intangible, their myths, symbols, and whispers of hidden knowledge. Whether we see them as primitive or advanced, as metaphorical or scientific, one truth endures. They remind us that humanity has always sought the same answers. Who are we? Where do we come from? What forces shape our reality? But one more question remains, darker and more unsettling. If such knowledge existed, knowledge of vibration, of energy, of cycles, where did it come from? Did humanity discover it alone? Or was it given, seeded, whispered from beyond? To explore that possibility, we must now turn from ruins to the sky, to the myths of beings descending from the stars, of gods who walked among mortals, of ancient encounters that blur the line between myth and contact. From the deserts of Egypt to the temples of India, from the standing stones of Britain to the hidden manuscripts of mystics, one symbol keeps appearing: geometry. Not just lines and circles, but patterns that seem to hum with meaning, as though carved not only in stone but into the very fabric of reality itself. Sacred geometry, as it is often called, has long been revered as the language of creation. But could these ancient shapes also be blueprints of something deeper, a reflection of the quantum field itself? The flower of life is perhaps the most striking. A series of overlapping circles, creating a lattice of interlocking hexagons. It appears in sacred sites across cultures, etched into the walls of the Assyrian temple at Abydos, found in manuscripts, echoed in Renaissance art. To many, it is a symbol of harmony, a map of creation's order. Yet look closer, and something uncanny emerges. The flower of life generates patterns that resemble the Platonic solids, those perfect three-dimensional forms revered by the Greeks as the building blocks of the cosmos. In modern physics, wave functions and fields also organize themselves into symmetrical structures. echoing these same harmonic forms. Coincidence? Or are we glimpsing a timeless recognition of hidden geometry within nature? Consider the pyramids. Their triangular faces rise to a point, a geometry both simple and profound. But the Great Pyramid of Giza carries within it ratios that seem to whisper universal constants. The golden ratio, pi, even hints of the speed of light in its proportions. Skeptics argue these numbers emerge from selective interpretation. But to seekers, the pyramid is not only a tomb, but a frozen equation in stone, a model of energy flow, a monument to resonance. In quantum physics, resonance underpins everything, from atomic vibrations to the stability of matter. Could it be that pyramids were tuned, consciously or unconsciously, to amplify the invisible rhythms of the earth, much like a crystal vibrates in harmony with frequency? Travel to the British Isles, where Stonehenge stands as a circle of massive stones aligned with the solstices. Archaeologists explain it as a calendar, a ritual site, a marker of seasons. Yet, when viewed through the lens of geometry, its ring echoes patterns of wave interference, the same patterns one sees in quantum double-slit experiments, where particles of light form rippling designs as if weaving reality itself. Did the builders of Stonehenge intuitively mirror the geometry of waves, embedding cosmic rhythms into stone? Or do we, looking back, impose meaning on what was once only ritual? Sacred geometry stretches beyond monuments. In Hindu yantras and Buddhist mandalas, in Celtic knots and Islamic mosaics, we see recurring shapes, spirals, hexagons, stars. To the faithful, they are maps of meditation, gateways to higher states of consciousness. To the scientist, they are fractals and symmetries, the same principles that describe crystal lattice, electromagnetic fields, and even the structure of space-time. Once again, the divide is thin. Spiritual symbol versus scientific model. Perhaps both lenses are true, each incomplete without the other. Modern science has discovered that the universe is structured in ways that echo these timeless patterns. Honeybees build hexagons in their hives not by chance, but because hexagons maximize efficiency. Galaxies spin in spirals that mirror the Fibonacci sequence, a ratio found in seashells, hurricanes, even the branching of trees. In physics, fields and vibrations organize matter into repeating patterns. Cymatics, the study of sound waves on matter, shows sand and water forming geometric shapes when exposed to different frequencies. Suddenly, the ancient claim that sound creates reality seems less metaphor and more possibility. Could it be that ancient peoples, through observation, intuition, or altered states of consciousness, recognized what physics now measures with equations? That geometry is not merely art, but the skeleton of reality, the hidden architecture of the quantum field. But here lies the tension. Historians warn us not to project quantum mechanics onto symbols thousands of years old. The flower of life, they argue, was decorative, not scientific. The pyramids were political monuments, not cosmic resonators. Mandalas are aids to meditation, not diagrams of waveforms. To overlay modern science on these ancient symbols, they say, is to commit anachronism. And yet, the resonance persists. Even if the ancients did not know quantum physics in equations, perhaps they grasped it in another way, experientially, symbolically, ritually. What if sacred geometry was their language for truths that elude words? What if, through symbols, they reached toward the same mysteries we now attempt to decode with mathematics? This convergence is most striking in the idea of the quantum field. In physics, the field is invisible, yet omnipresent, an underlying fabric where particles emerge and vanish, where energy vibrates in silence, where reality itself shimmers with possibility. In sacred geometry, symbols like the flower of life or Metatron's cube are often described as patterns of creation, frameworks through which the cosmos unfolds. The parallel is almost poetic. Science speaks of invisible fields, mystics speak of hidden patterns, and both point towards something deeper, something that shapes the visible from the unseen. Perhaps the greatest intrigue lies not in proving one side right, but in allowing the tension to breathe. Maybe sacred geometry and quantum fields are mirrors of the same truth, glimpsed from different vantage points, one through meditation and myth, the other through measurement and math. If so, then humanity has always been circling the same enigma, tracing its outlines through art, architecture, and now physics thought. And if geometry is indeed the bridge, then the question becomes, what lies on the other side of that bridge? Are we uncovering universal laws that govern all of creation? Or are we only scratching the surface of a mystery vaster than equations can hold? As we trace these patterns across cultures and theories, one question grows louder. Did ancient civilizations know these truths consciously, encoding them into their monuments and symbols as messages for the future? Or is it we, in our quantum age, who finally have the tools to decode what they only intuited? The answer, as always, lies somewhere between certainty and wonder. For in the geometry of the ancients and the quantum fields of the moderns, we glimpse the same dance, the invisible weaving the visible, order emerging from chaos, reality unfolding from patterns older than time itself. And so, geometry becomes more than shape. It becomes a key that unlocks not only structures of stone but structures of thought, structures of reality. Whether carved into temples or written in equations, it invites us to step closer, to listen, to see the cosmos not as random, but as patterned, connected. A live dot, this key now opens a door, one that leads us beyond symbols and patterns into the deeper question of origins. For if the ancients encoded cosmic truths, where did they receive them? Were they born of human intuition alone, or whispered from the stars? To explore this possibility, we must turn from geometry to myth, from symbol to story, to the encounters that suggest knowledge may not have been discovered, but given. If sacred geometry is a key, then perhaps it is not a key forged by human hands alone. Perhaps it is a key given, whispered into the dreams of humanity by something beyond. For across cultures and across time, myths emerge that tell of visitors who came from the heavens, bearing knowledge, shaping civilizations, and then vanishing into mystery. Were these myths only allegories, or could they point to encounters with intelligences not of this earth? Let us begin with the Sumerians, among the earliest recorders of human history. Their clay tablets speak of the Anunnaki, those who came from the heavens to earth. They are described as powerful beings who bestowed kingship, agriculture, and knowledge of the stars. To mainstream scholars, the Anunnaki are gods in myth, symbolic of natural forces and political authority. Yet some researchers ask a more provocative question. Why do these myths describe beings descending from the skies, wielding advanced tools and teaching humanity skills beyond their era? Was this simply metaphor or a veiled memory of contact with something real? Travel to Egypt, where the gods were often depicted with the bodies of humans and the heads of animals. Thoth, the god of wisdom, was said to have given the gift of writing and mathematics. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, was linked to agriculture and the cycles of rebirth. Could these figures be entirely mythological, or were they remembered as great teachers, beings whose origin was not of Earth, but of the stars? The pyramids themselves, aligned with Orion's belt, hint at an obsession with the heavens so deep it shaped architecture. What compelled such devotion to the sky? In the Vedic traditions of India, the Vimanas appear, flying chariots described in ancient Sanskrit texts. They are said to soar through the skies, even into the heavens, propelled by unknown forces. To historians, they are mythic symbols of divine power. To seekers, they sound hauntingly like descriptions of flying craft. The texts even speak of weaponry resembling beams of energy, battles fought with weapons of fire and light, echoes, perhaps, of technologies far beyond the Iron Age thought in Mesoamerica. The gods of the Maya and Aztec descended from the heavens, bringing order and teaching calendars, agriculture, and astronomy. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is said to have arrived from the east, given wisdom, and promised to return. Was he a myth, king, or something stranger? The Mayan calendar itself, with its uncanny precision, suggests a deep awareness of cosmic cycles. Could this have been inspired by knowledge from beyond? Across the Pacific, Polynesian legends speak of star voyagers who taught navigation across oceans, using the stars as guides. Native American stories tell of sky people who interacted with tribes, offering guidance and warnings. Even in the Bible, the Nephilim appear, mysterious giants said to be born of the union between sons of God and daughters of men. Everywhere, the theme repeats: beings descending, teaching, sometimes ruling, sometimes vanishing. Skeptics argue that these are only stories, myths crafted to explain natural forces, to give authority to rulers, or to embody psychological archetypes. But the repetition across cultures raises the question: why do so many myths, separated by oceans and centuries, converge on the same imagery? Beings from the sky, bringing knowledge. Is this universal imagination or a shared memory of something once witnessed? Modern theories of ancient astronauts attempt to answer this puzzle. They suggest that in deep antiquity, humanity may have been visited by extraterrestrial intelligences. These visitors, advanced in technology, might have appeared godlike to early humans, who then enshrined the encounters in myth. The knowledge they imparted of astronomy, geometry, and agriculture became the seeds of civilization itself. Mainstream science rejects this view, pointing to human ingenuity as sufficient explanation. Yet the idea persists, fueled by unanswered anomalies in our history. Consider once more the precision of ancient monuments. The Nazca lines, visible only from above. The pyramids, aligned to stars. The megaliths of Baalbek, with stones so massive that even modern cranes struggle to move them. Are these the achievements of human determination alone? Or were they guided, inspired, or even assisted by something beyond? But if such contact occurred, another question emerges. Why is it hidden? Why no unambiguous evidence, no machines left behind, no undeniable artifact of extraterrestrial origin? The skeptic's case is powerful here. Yet seekers argue that perhaps the knowledge itself, the symbols, the geometry, the myths, are the artifacts. That what was given was never meant to be machinery, but wisdom, encoded in ways we still struggle to understand. The debate sharpens when we consider modern experiences. Today, across the world, people report encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, lights in the sky, structured craft, beings described in ways that echo the myths of old. The U.S. government has acknowledged unidentified aerial objects beyond easy explanation. Could these modern sightings be continuations of an ancient presence? Or are they products of psychology, folklore evolving into contemporary myth? Here again, the contrast emerges. The scientist demands proof, materials, measurements, repeatable evidence. The mystic sees patterns, continuity across ages, resonance between past and present. The skeptic sees coincidence. The seeker sees connection. And yet, consider the possibility that the truth lies not in choosing one side, but in weaving both. What if the myths of gods and visitors were not literal accounts of extraterrestrials as we imagine them, nor merely allegories, but something stranger still? What if ancient peoples encountered intelligences that defy our categories, neither gods nor aliens, but manifestations of a reality larger than our own? Quantum physics already tells us that reality is stranger than imagination. particles that exist in superposition, entangled across distance, reality shaped by observation. What if consciousness itself is part of this equation? Some researchers suggest that contact experiences, both ancient and modern, may not be about physical visitors from stars alone, but about interactions with consciousness itself, intelligences, that intersect our reality in ways we cannot yet measure. From this perspective, myths of the Anunnaki, the Manas, and Sky People may be glimpses of encounters with a greater field of intelligence, woven into the fabric of the cosmos, beings or forces that emerge when consciousness and reality intersect. To ancient peoples, they appeared as gods. To us, they might appear as visitors from the stars. But perhaps they are neither. Perhaps they are something that challenges the very categories we use to think. And so, we return to the beginning. If geometry is the key, then maybe the myths are the map. A map pointing not only to the stars, but to dimensions of consciousness and reality beyond our own. A map left for us to decipher, to follow, to question. The skeptic will still ask, where is the evidence? The believer will still say, it is all around us. And between them lies the mystery that keeps the question alive. What if we are not, and never have been, alone? What if the knowledge of the ancients, the myths of gods and visitors, the alignments of stone and symbol, all point to the same truth, that humanity's story is entwined with others, woven into a cosmic tapestry we have only begun to glimpse? If so, then the great monuments are not just relics of human ambition, but markers of contact, reminders of a time when the boundary between earth and sky was thinner, when knowledge flowed from stars to soil. And if that is true, then the question is not whether contact happened once, but whether it is still happening, now, in our age, in ways we are just beginning to see. To answer that, we must turn from the myths of visitors to the science of consciousness itself. For if reality is shaped by mind, and if contact is not only physical, but experiential, then the next frontier is not only in the stars, but within consciousness. The one phenomenon each of us experiences directly, yet the one science still cannot fully explain. We know what it feels like to be aware, to perceive, to think. But what is awareness? And why does it seem so mysteriously entangled with the very fabric of reality? In the strange world of quantum mechanics, particles exist in many possible states at once until they are measured. Electrons hover like probability clouds. Photons traverse multiple paths. Reality seems to suspend its decision until an act of observation collapses the uncertainty into something definite. This simple but unsettling feature of the quantum world forces us to ask a radical question. Does consciousness itself play a role in shaping reality? Most physicists hesitate here. They prefer to interpret the observer effect as a limitation of our instruments, not a cosmic mystery. In this view, the collapse of the wave function isn't about us. It's about interactions with any physical environment. A particle observed by a detector is no different from a particle colliding with dust. The universe doesn't require human awareness to function. And yet, the debate refuses to settle. Why? Because mathematics leaves room for multiple interpretations, and because our own awareness is so unique, so immediate, so irreducible, that we cannot simply brush it aside. Consider the thought experiment of Schrodinger's cat. A cat in a box exists in a strange superposition alive and dead until someone opens the lid. The unsettling implication is that reality itself may not be fully real until it is observed. But what counts as an observer? A camera? A Geiger counter? Or is human consciousness the final arbiter of actuality? This tension pulls us into philosophy. For centuries, sages and mystics from different traditions have suggested that the mind is not just a byproduct of the brain, but a fundamental aspect of the cosmos. In Vedic philosophy, consciousness is the ground of being. In ancient Egyptian thought, the heart and spirit guided the architecture of the universe. In indigenous traditions across the world, reality is animated, woven with awareness at every level. Modern neuroscience, meanwhile, struggles to fit consciousness into a purely material framework. Neurons fire, networks activate, chemicals surge, yet the spark of subjective experience, the I that feels and knows, remains elusive. It is the so-called hard problem of consciousness. How does matter give rise to mind? Now bring these two mysteries together: the unresolved questions of quantum physics and the unresolved nature of consciousness. Could it be that they are not two separate enigmas, but two sides of the same riddle? Some scientists think so. Theories like orchestrated objective reduction, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, suggest that quantum effects inside the brain might underpin consciousness itself. According to this view, the microtubules within neurons may harness quantum states, collapsing them in orchestrated ways that generate subjective awareness. Critics call this speculation. Supporters argue it is the only path bold enough to explain what ordinary biology cannot. Even more provocative are those who argue in reverse, that consciousness doesn't emerge from quantum mechanics, it drives it. That awareness is woven into the universe at the deepest level, and that the quantum world reveals it to us through its strange refusal to settle into certainty without observation. This is where science meets mysticism, and where the lines blur between physics and philosophy. The Buddhist concept of dependent origination, the Vedic notion of Brahman, the Hermetic maxim as above, so below, all hint at a reality where consciousness and cosmos are inseparable. To some, this is poetic coincidence. To others, it is evidence that ancient wisdom intuited truths that modern science is only now rediscovering. But pause here. For every mind-bending speculation, there is a sober counterpoint. Many physicists argue that no human consciousness is required for the universe to evolve. The collapse of a wave function, they insist, is simply a matter of quantum systems interacting with their environment. The universe was forming galaxies and stars long before humans ever opened their eyes to see them. Consciousness, in this view, is a latecomer, not a creator. And yet, the haunting paradox remains. If we strip away all observers, all minds, all perception, what does it even mean to say that something exists? Is existence, without awareness, anything more than a mathematical abstraction? Here lies the great philosophical divide. Science seeks to measure. Consciousness refuses to be measured. Science seeks objectivity. Consciousness is the essence of subjectivity. The more we probe this divide, the more slippery it becomes. Quantum mechanics teaches us that the universe is not made of solid blocks of matter, but of probabilities, relationships, and fields of potential. Consciousness, too, seems less like a fixed thing and more like a field dynamic, ever-shifting, impossible to pin down. Perhaps the resonance between the two is not accidental, but fundamental. Consider the words of physicist John Wheeler, who spoke of a participatory universe. According to Wheeler, reality is not something fixed and waiting to be discovered, but something brought into being through acts of measurement. We live not in a universe of mute machinery, but in a cosmic conversation, where observer and observed co-create the unfolding story. If this is true, then consciousness is not a passive witness, but an active participant. Every act of observation is a thread woven into the fabric of reality itself. The cosmos, then, is less a cold stage and more a living tapestry. This possibility has profound implications. If consciousness is fundamental, then perhaps death is not the annihilation of awareness, but a transformation. If mind is woven into reality, then perhaps individual consciousness is a wave upon a greater ocean, merging back into the whole. Here the scientific mystery touches the deepest human questions. Who are we? Why are we here? What happens when we die? And while science cannot yet answer these with certainty, the dialogue between quantum mechanics and consciousness ensures that these questions remain alive, pulsing at the frontier of knowledge. Perhaps, then, the real lesson of the observer effect is not that we collapse reality into existence, but that we are inseparably entangled with it. Consciousness and cosmos, knower and known, are not two, but one unfolding process. Still, the mystery is far from solved. For every bold theory, there are critics who insist that linking quantum physics to consciousness is little more than wishful thinking. They argue that science must proceed carefully, grounded in evidence, not seduced by poetic parallels. Yet, even here, we cannot escape the enigma. Consciousness remains unexplained. Quantum reality remains unsettled. And the fact that they mirror each other so uncannily may itself be a clue that we stand on the threshold of a deeper truth. In this way, the quantum observer becomes more than a scientific puzzle. It becomes a symbol, a mirror held up to our own existence. It forces us to confront the possibility that reality is stranger than we can imagine, and that our minds are not just inside the universe, but of the universe. We began with a question: what is awareness? And why does it seem bound to the quantum world? We end with another. Could it be that the universe becomes aware through us? The answer is not settled, and perhaps never will be. But one thing is certain. The observer at the edge of reality will always compel us to look deeper, to question more, to seek beyond the veil of certainty. And as we turn from the question of consciousness, we arrive at an even more expansive mystery: time itself. If the observer is inseparable from reality, then how do we experience its unfolding? What is the nature of past, present, and future in a universe where quantum possibility reigns? The next step in our journey takes us into the river of time, where relativity and quantum mechanics collide, and where the flow of existence reveals yet another paradox at the heart of reality: time. The one element of existence that seems both utterly familiar and deeply alien. We live by its rhythm, measure our lives in its passing. And yet, when we look closer, time begins to dissolve into mystery. What is the present, really? Does the past still exist? Is the future already written? Or is time itself an illusion we've mistaken for reality? Physics has long wrestled with these questions, and two great frameworks offer contrasting visions. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity reshaped our understanding of time in the early 20th century. No longer an absolute backdrop, time became elastic, stretching and bending depending on speed and gravity. A clock aboard a fast-moving spaceship ticks more slowly than one on Earth. The heartbeat of an astronaut orbiting a black hole drags out compared to ours. Time, relativity shows, is not universal, but relative, entwined with space in a four-dimensional fabric we call space-time. This was revolutionary. Suddenly, the past, present, and future could be seen not as fleeting moments, but as part of a vast block universe, where all of time exists simultaneously. An Hajj, eternal tapestry in which we simply trace our path. To Einstein, the distinction between past, present, and future was a stubbornly persistent illusion. And yet, quantum mechanics paints a picture just as strange, but in a different language. In the quantum world, particles don't merely drift along a smooth river of time. Instead, they jitter between possibilities, collapse into certainties, and in some interpretations, even reach backward to influence the past. The arrow of time, so natural in our experience, seems less fundamental when viewed through the lens of quantum theory. This creates a paradox. Relativity suggests a static block universe where every event already exists, mapped out in space-time. Quantum mechanics, by contrast, thrives on uncertainty and probability, where the future is not fixed, but open until it unfolds. How can these two realities both be true? Some physicists argue that time itself might not be fundamental at all, that what we call time is an emergent phenomenon, like temperature. Just as temperature arises from the motion of countless molecules, time might emerge from deeper quantum processes we cannot yet see. If so, then our experience of flowing from past to future is not the engine of reality, but a side effect of how consciousness interacts with quantum fields. Think of it this way. We feel time because our minds stitch together events into a narrative. But beneath that narrative, perhaps the universe simply is a quantum field where all possibilities exist, timeless and complete. In this view, consciousness might act as the projector, creating the sense of flow. Ancient traditions often hinted at something similar. In Hindu philosophy, time kala was seen as cyclical, a wheel of endless creation and dissolution. The Mayans built their civilizations around intricate calendars that described cosmic cycles with astonishing precision. To them, time was not a straight arrow, but a repeating rhythm. Even in the West, mystics spoke of eternity, not as endless duration, but as timelessness, a reality beyond before and after. Contrast it with modern physics, and the resonance is striking. Einstein's relativity suggests a timeless block where all events coexist. Quantum mechanics suggests a timeless field of possibility. The mystics and the mathematicians, worlds apart, both whisper the same unsettling truth. Time as we know it may not exist, yet the human experience of time is undeniable. We grow older, seasons change, stars burn out. The arrow of time seems to point forward because of one key principle: entropy. In thermodynamics, entropy measures disorder, and it tends to increase. A cup of hot coffee cools, never spontaneously reheating. A broken vase does not leap back together. This one-way increase in entropy gives time its direction. The past is the trail of lower entropy. The future, higher entropy. But here again, the quantum world disrupts our certainty. At the smallest scales, the equations of physics work just as well backward as forward. There is no built-in arrow of time. Only when we step into the macroscopic world, into the realm of human experience, does the arrow emerge. It is as though the universe itself holds no preference for past or future. But consciousness and complexity impose one dot. Now imagine what this means for our place in the cosmos. If time is emergent, if the past and future are equally real, then our lives are not rushing toward oblivion, but existing as part of a grand pattern. The moment you are living right now, the moment you call now, may always exist, embedded in the eternal structure of space-time. Death, then, is not erasure, but a transition into another corner of the tapestry. For some physicists, this brings them close to the spiritual. For others, it is a sobering reminder of how little we understand. Consider quantum entanglement. Two particles can be linked across vast distances, their states correlated instantly. Some experiments suggest this correlation holds even across time entanglement, not only between here and there, but between now and then. Could it be that the quantum world dissolves our neat boundaries of past, present, and future, hinting that time itself is a deeper illusion? And what of free will? If relativity's block universe is true, then the future already exists, just as the past does. Our choices, our struggles, our triumphs, they are written into space-time like ink on parchment. Yet quantum mechanics suggests indeterminacy, open possibility, the freedom of collapse. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between. The broad shape of history may be fixed, but the details emerge in real time, like improvisation within a score. John Wheeler once asked, "Does the universe exist if we are not looking?" His participatory universe suggests that we are not simply drifting through time, but co-creating it. Each observation, each act of consciousness, may carve out the flow of moments from the sea of possibilities. Time is not merely given. It is made. This perspective brings science and philosophy to the edge of awe. If time emerges from the interaction of consciousness and quantum reality, then perhaps we are not prisoners of time but artisans within it. We are not swept helplessly along a river. We are shaping the riverbed itself. Still, the paradox remains unresolved. Relativity shows us a block universe, frozen and eternal. Quantum mechanics shows us a probabilistic one, alive with unfolding. Entropy gives us the arrow. Consciousness gives us the experience. Between these perspectives, we glimpse not an answer, but a mystery that grows deeper the more we look. So what is time? A dimension? An illusion? A construct of consciousness? Or a fundamental aspect of the cosmos? Perhaps it is all of these at once. Perhaps time is the bridge where the measurable meets the immeasurable, where physics meets philosophy, where existence itself meets awareness. And perhaps that is the greatest gift of time, that in seeking to understand it, we are forced to confront not only the nature of the universe, but the nature of ourselves. As we leave the river of time, another question emerges, one that binds all the threads together. If consciousness shapes reality, if time is a mystery, and if the cosmos is alive with hidden patterns, then what lies at the root of it all? What is the source that gives rise to mind, matter, and the unfolding of existence itself? The next step takes us deeper still into the enigma of the cosmic mind, where the universe itself may not just be a stage for consciousness, but an expression of it. What if the universe is not a machine, cold and indifferent, but a mind of vast intelligence thinking itself into being? For centuries, this idea belonged to poets, mystics, and philosophers. Yet today, some of the most advanced scientific theories are beginning to circle back toward a vision that sounds eerily similar. The cosmos, it seems, may not just contain consciousness. It may be consciousness. From the ancient Greeks to the Vedic sages, from indigenous shamans to Renaissance philosophers, humanity has wrestled with one recurring intuition: that intelligence is woven into the fabric of reality itself. The Stoics called it the Logos, the rational order pervading the universe. In India, the Upanishads spoke of Brahman, the ultimate consciousness from which all arises. In China, Taoist philosophy described the Tao, an ineffable order flowing through all things. Again and again, cultures separated by oceans and centuries pointed to the same possibility. The universe is alive with mind. Modern science, for much of its history, rejected this idea. The cosmos was a clockwork, running on blind laws, indifferent to human longing. Consciousness was reduced to a byproduct of matter, a fleeting spark of neurons firing in an accidental brain. But cracks are appearing in this narrative, and through them, ancient echoes are resurfacing. Take quantum mechanics. At the heart of the quantum mystery is the role of the observer. Does a particle exist in multiple states until measured? Does observation collapse possibility into reality? If so, consciousness is not a passenger in the universe, but a participant in its unfolding. John Wheeler, one of the architects of quantum theory, once proposed the participatory universe, a cosmos in which observers are essential to bringing reality into being. We are, he said, part of the universe that makes itself. This raises a radical possibility. Consciousness is not produced by the universe. Consciousness is the universe, expressed through us. In this view, our minds are not isolated sparks, but waves on a vast ocean of universal intelligence. Neuroscience, too, is finding hints of this. The hard problem of consciousness, the mystery of how subjective experience arises from matter, remains unsolved. Some researchers now suggest that perhaps we've asked the wrong question. Maybe consciousness is not something the brain creates, but something the brain receives, filters, or tunes into. Just as a radio does not create the signal but captures it, the brain may be a receiver of the cosmic mind. This is where science and mysticism begin to merge. Panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, present even at the smallest levels, is gaining serious attention among philosophers and physicists. From this perspective, atoms, molecules, and stars all participate in varying degrees of awareness. The universe is not dead matter, but a living field of experience. Contrast this with the traditional materialist view. In one narrative, the mind is a latecomer, an accidental flicker in a vast, meaningless void. In the other, the mind is the ground of being, the soil from which matter itself grows. One strips us of significance. The other places us at the heart of an intelligent cosmos. But which is true? Evidence alone may not decide. The materialist points to brain scans and chemistry. The mystic points to inner experience, synchronicities, and the undeniable reality of consciousness itself. Between them lies the mystery. Undeniable, inexhaustible, irresistible. Consider the strange precision of the cosmos. The laws of physics are finely tuned for life, so finely that if the constants were shifted even slightly, stars would not form, chemistry would collapse, and no conscious beings would ever ask why. Is this precision a coincidence? The outcome of infinite universes where we just happen to exist in the right one? Or is it evidence of a deeper intelligence, a universe designed or perhaps self-organized to know itself? Some thinkers suggest that intelligence is not an afterthought, but the driving principle. That the universe evolves toward complexity, toward awareness, toward self-reflection. Life emerges, consciousness awakens, civilizations rise, all as expressions of the cosmos recognizing itself. As the physicist Freeman Dyson once said, it appears that the universe knew we were coming. Mystical traditions have long echoed this. Tat Vamasi, you are that say the Upanishads, pointing to the unity of self and cosmos. The Sufis sang of God as the hidden treasure who longed to be known. In Kabbalah, creation itself is a process of divine self-discovery. The recurring theme, existence is intelligence, unfolding in myriad forms, and yet doubts remain. If the universe is intelligent, why does it contain so much chaos, suffering, and apparent indifference? If mind pervades reality, why does consciousness seem so fragile, so easily extinguished by injury or disease? These are the challenges, the counterpoints that demand humility. Perhaps our understanding of intelligence is too narrow, bound by human definitions. Perhaps what we call chaos is part of a larger order, one our limited perspective cannot yet perceive. Still, the signs of a cosmic mind whisper from every corner. The fractal geometry of nature, repeating across scales from galaxies to seashells. The harmony of physical laws, elegant and consistent. The emergence of self-awareness in creatures who can ponder their own origins. Each of these could be seen as the universe leaving clues, like brushstrokes of an unseen artist. Now imagine the implications if this is true. If the cosmos is intelligent, then we are not orphans in a meaningless expanse. We are participants in a dialogue, expressions of a mind larger than our own. Our thoughts, our creativity, our yearning for truth, all of these are not accidents, but echoes of the cosmic intelligence resonating within us. This vision blurs the boundary between science and spirituality. It suggests that studying the laws of physics is not merely analysis but communion, that when we decipher equations, we are listening to the thoughts of the universe. That meditation, art, and philosophy are not escapes, but ways of aligning with the greater mind. Of course, skeptics push back. They argue that invoking a cosmic mind risks slipping into untestable mysticism. They remind us that human brains are storytelling machines, eager to find meaning where there may be none. Perhaps the universe appears intelligent simply because we project our intelligence onto it, like children seeing faces in the clouds. But what if it is the other way around? What if our capacity for meaning, for imagination, for wonder, is the proof of a deeper connection? What if the very fact that we ask these questions reveals that the cosmos is asking them through us? Here lies the paradox. To the skeptic, the cosmic mind is fantasy. To the seeker, the absence of meaning is unimaginable. And between them, science itself is beginning to explore, gingerly, the possibility that consciousness is more fundamental than we ever dreamed. As we move deeper into this exploration, one question rises to the surface. If the universe is a mind, can we communicate with it? Can we align with its intelligence, hear its rhythms, follow its guidance? Mystics say yes, through meditation, prayer, and silence. Scientists say perhaps, through mathematics, physics, and observation. Different languages maybe, but pointing to the same dialogue. And in that dialogue, a deeper possibility emerges that our destiny as a species is to awaken to our role in cosmic intelligence. That just as individual neurons awaken into a mind, so too may civilizations awaken into a planetary consciousness, and perhaps even a galactic one. We are the cosmos learning, layer by layer, to recognize itself. So where does this leave us? Standing at the edge of two narratives. In one, the universe is matter first, mind later, and our search for meaning is a trick of chemistry. On the other hand, the universe is mind first, matter later, and our search for meaning is the very purpose of existence. Both narratives tug at us, both shape our understanding, and both may hold fragments of truth. The journey is not about choosing one or the other, but about holding the paradox, living in the tension between skepticism and wonder, science and spirit, doubt and belief. For it is in that tension that deeper insights are born. Perhaps the cosmic mind is not something to be proven, but something to be experienced. In awe at the night sky, in the elegance of equations, in the silence of meditation, in the shared laughter of human connection. Each of these moments is a doorway into the mystery. And as we pass through, the question shifts. No longer, does the universe have a mind? But how do we live, knowing that we may be part of it? That question leads us forward into the next chapter, where we ask not only about intelligence, but about destiny. If the universe is conscious, if it evolves through us, then what future awaits us as participants in its unfolding awareness? History, we are told, is a steady march from ignorance to knowledge, from primitive beginnings to modern brilliance. But what if that narrative is incomplete? What if beneath the official record lies another story, a story of civilizations that touched mysteries we are only now beginning to rediscover? A story not of progress alone, but of loss, suppression, and forgotten wisdom? Every culture carries whispers of lost knowledge. Ancient texts speak of golden ages when humans lived in harmony with cosmic forces. Legends tell of catastrophic floods and fires that swept away entire worlds. Myths recall teachers who descended from the stars, or sages who held the keys to reality itself. To the historian, these are symbols, allegories, or inventions of the human imagination. But to the seeker, they are clues, fragments of a memory humanity has struggled to keep alive. Take the Sumerians, often credited with creating the first known civilization. Their myths speak of beings called the Anunnaki, who imparted knowledge of the heavens, agriculture, and order. Were these merely stories or records of an encounter with wisdom beyond their time? The Egyptians, too, encoded secrets in their temples and pyramids. Priests spoke of Heka, a force that bound reality together, a resonance between words, symbols, and the cosmos itself. Was this simply ritual magic, or an early attempt to articulate the laws of energy and vibration we now glimpse in quantum physics? The Vedic traditions of India tell of ancient rishis who perceive reality through pure consciousness. Their hymns in the Rig Veda describe the universe as sound, vibration, and infinite layers of existence. Thousands of years later, Quantum physicists describe particles as excitations of fields vibrations in the very fabric of spacetime. Is this a coincidence or a continuity of knowledge hidden in poetic language? And then there are the Mayans, whose calendars tracked cosmic cycles with astonishing precision. For them, time was not linear, but woven into rhythms that echoed across the stars. Today, cosmologists search for patterns in the cosmic microwave background, seeking the echoes of creation itself. Once again, myth and science seem to gaze at the same mystery through different lenses. Yet much of this ancient wisdom has been erased, suppressed, or dismissed. The Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest repositories of knowledge ever assembled, was reduced to ashes. Its scrolls lost to time. Indigenous wisdom was silenced by conquest, its guardians scattered or killed. Even within modern institutions, knowledge that challenges the prevailing paradigm is often pushed aside, labeled pseudoscience, forbidden from serious inquiry. Why? Perhaps because knowledge is power. To know the hidden laws of reality is to hold influence over matter, energy, and even minds. Throughout history, those who controlled knowledge controlled destiny. Empires rose and fell not only on armies, but on ideas guarded by elites, encoded in symbols, or buried beneath secrecy. This invites a haunting possibility. What if some truths about reality were not simply forgotten, but deliberately hidden? What if the overlap between ancient myths and modern physics is not coincidence, but evidence of a continuity of understanding, one fractured by catastrophe, secrecy, or deliberate suppression? Skeptics will rightly caution us. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. And yet, the fragments that remain are enough to stir the imagination. Why do so many myths across the world describe floods, celestial visitors, and cycles of destruction and rebirth? Why do so many sacred sites align perfectly with stars, solstices, and mathematical ratios that still fascinate physicists? Why do symbols like the flower of life appear in cultures oceans apart? Coincidence or memory? In this contrast lies the tension. On one side, the careful historian, reminding us that myths evolve, that cultures borrow and invent, that human beings are meaning makers. On the other, the seeker, pointing to the patterns too consistent to dismiss, the resonances too deep to ignore. Between them lies a possibility. That truth is not in choosing one view, but in seeing that both may hold pieces of the puzzle. If lost knowledge exists, what form might it take? Perhaps it was practical methods of harnessing energy, understanding consciousness, or mapping the cosmos. Or perhaps it was philosophical a way of seeing the unity of life and the universe, a wisdom we've replaced with mechanistic thinking. Maybe the ancients understood something we have forgotten, that knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, that to know reality is also to bear responsibility for it. And what if some of this wisdom is still with us, hidden not in ruins but in plain sight, in myths, symbols, rituals, and traditions that carry echoes of truths too profound to vanish? To read these traditions not as superstition, but as encoded science is to see them anew. The serpent, the spiral, the cosmic egg, the tree of life. These may not just be metaphors, but languages of a knowledge we are only now learning to translate. This is why the idea of forbidden narratives captures us so deeply. It suggests that history is not just a past we inherit, but a mystery we must decode. That within the silence of lost libraries, the ruins of vanished temples, and the whispers of oral traditions lies a secret waiting to be remembered. But here we must ask, if such knowledge existed, why was it lost? Was it swept away by natural cataclysms, floods, earthquakes, or cosmic impacts? Was it buried under the weight of conquest and empire? Or was it hidden because humanity was not ready to wield it? These are the questions that pull us deeper, beyond history into speculation, where science meets mythology and curiosity meets caution. Perhaps the truth is not that ancients knew quantum physics in the way we define it today, but that they intuited patterns and forces we now attempt to measure. Perhaps they understood that the universe is alive with resonance, that consciousness is not separate from matter, that reality itself is woven from hidden threads. Their symbols, rituals, and myths may have been their way of preserving insights too vast for language. The contrast is stark. The historian sees myth. The seeker sees memory. The skeptic sees coincidence. The philosopher sees pattern. And between these views stands the audience, you faced with the choice of how to interpret the fragments of our forgotten past. And maybe that choice is itself part of the story. For what we choose to remember, what we choose to dismiss, shapes not only our view of history, but our destiny as a species. As we turn to the next question, the horizon widens. If knowledge has been lost, if narratives have been forbidden, then what does that mean for us today? Are we on the cusp of rediscovering what was once known? Are we destined to repeat cycles of memory and forgetting? Or are we being invited to integrate science and wisdom, past and future, in a way that humanity has never before achieved? The path forward takes us deeper into speculation, not only about what has been lost, but about what is yet to come. If we stand on the threshold of rediscovery, then the next question is clear. What future awaits us if ancient wisdom and modern science converge? We have traveled through myths and mathematics, pyramids and particles, gods and equations. But now we arrive at the most important question of all. Where do we go from here? The horizon before us is both exhilarating and uncertain. Science stands at the edge of mysteries deeper than ever imagined. Myth continues to echo in our collective psyche, whispering truths we half remember. And humanity itself, caught between past and future, faces choices that will shape not only our destiny, but perhaps the destiny of consciousness itself. The story of knowledge has always been a story of thresholds. The ancients gazed at the stars and saw gods, spirits, and patterns. We gaze at the same stars and see galaxies, dark matter, and quantum foam. And yet the feeling is the same: awe, humility, and wonder before the infinite. This continuity suggests that science and myth are not enemies, but different languages describing the same encounter, the human attempt to face the unknown. The future may bring a convergence of these languages. Already we see glimpses of it. Neuroscience and contemplative traditions are beginning to dialogue, exploring how meditation reshapes the brain and how consciousness may not simply emerge from matter but interact with it in profound ways. Quantum physics, with its talk of entanglement and non-locality, resonates with mystical ideas of unity and oneness. Even cosmology, which once seemed purely material, now entertains questions about the multiverse, holographic reality, and dimensions beyond perception. If science is moving toward mystery, myth is moving toward relevance. Symbols once dismissed as superstition are being reinterpreted as archetypes of human experience, encoded wisdom about the psyche and the cosmos. The serpent, the spiral, the axis mundi, the sacred tree, these are no longer seen as quaint relics, but as universal languages of meaning. They guide us, not by dictating literal truths, but by reminding us that reality is layered, that the material and the symbolic are inseparable. This convergence points toward a future in which science does not strip the world of wonder, but deepens it. Imagine a society where technological progress is not divorced from wisdom, where exploration of the cosmos is accompanied by reverence for the sacred, where the pursuit of energy and knowledge is guided by the humility of myth. Such a future would be neither purely rational nor purely mystical, but integrative, uniting the strengths of both. But here lies the tension. The future is not guaranteed. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. Technology without meaning can destroy as easily as it creates. We stand on the edge of quantum computing, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and planetary exploration. These are tools that can elevate us or undo us. Myths have long warned of hubris, the fall that comes when humans grasp power without responsibility. Perhaps those stories were not just about the past, but warnings for our time. And yet, there is hope. For every myth of downfall, there is a myth of renewal. For every tale of a flood, there is also a promise of a new dawn. Humanity may be approaching such a dawn now. We have the chance to remember the wisdom of the ancients while advancing the discoveries of the modern age. The question is whether we will choose integration or division, harmony or conquest. Destiny is not a fixed script. It is a horizon, and horizons are shaped by the eyes that behold them. If we see the future only through the lens of fear and control, then we risk repeating the cycles of collapse. But if we see it as a continuation of the great human story, a story that stretches from myth to mathematics, from firelight rituals to particle colliders, then we may discover that destiny is not something imposed upon us, but something we co-create. What role do we play in this? Each of us is both heir and pioneer. We inherit myths, traditions, and symbols from the past, but we also shape the questions of tomorrow. When you gaze at the stars, you are continuing a lineage of wonder stretching back to the first humans who painted constellations on cave walls. When you wrestle with meaning, you are part of the same dialogue that priests, poets, and physicists have all engaged in. We are not spectators of this story, we are participants. Perhaps the most profound realization is that the boundary between myth and science, past and future, human and cosmos, is thinner than we think. Myth reminds us that we are not separate from the universe, but woven into its fabric. Science shows us that every atom in our body was forged in the heart of stars. Together, they reveal the same truth. We are the universe becoming conscious of itself. And so, the future horizon is not just about technology, discovery, or power. It is about meaning. It is about remembering that progress is not only measured in machines, but in wisdom, compassion, and our ability to live in harmony with the cosmos. If the ancients preserved fragments of truth in myth, and if science now provides tools to decode those truths, then our task is clear: to weave them together into a vision of reality worthy of both. Imagine a future where quantum fields and sacred geometry are taught, side by side, not as competing explanations, but as complementary languages. Imagine a world where exploring the stars is seen not only as conquest, but as pilgrimage. Imagine if instead of discarding myth, we reinterpreted it as a guide, and instead of fearing science, we embraced it as revelation. That future is not fantasy, it is possibility. The horizon is wide, and it beckons us. The myths of the past remind us of cycles, of loss and renewal. The science of the present gives us tools to peer into the deepest structures of reality. Together, they invite us into a destiny that is not yet written. The question is not whether myth and science can coexist. The question is whether we, as a species, are ready to embrace the awe, humility, and responsibility that such coexistence demands. For in that union lies not only the story of the cosmos, but the story of ourselves. And so, as we close this journey, we return to the beginning. The myths were never just stories. The science was never just data. Both have always been mirrors, reflecting the human quest to understand who we are, where we come from, and where we are going. The horizon remains open, the story unfinished, the mystery alive. The final truth may be this: our destiny is not to solve the mystery, but to live within it fully, courageously, and with wonder. From the first stones carved with sacred symbols to the equations scribbled on chalkboards, humanity has always been gazing into the same mirror, reality itself. Yet this mirror is strange. It reflects not just what is, but what might be. It shows us galaxies scattered across infinite space and particles dancing in hidden dimensions. It whispers that the ancients may have brushed against truths we are only now rediscovering. We began with a question. What if ancient civilizations knew the secrets of quantum reality? It seemed like speculation, a dream from the fringes of imagination. But as we journeyed across myths and mathematics, pyramids and particles, one truth became undeniable. The line between ancient wisdom and modern science is thinner than we think. Perhaps the ancients were not scientists in our sense of the word. They did not build particle accelerators or quantum computers. Yet, through myth, symbol, and sacred geometry, they may have glimpsed the underlying patterns of existence. Patterns that we now chase with mathematics and technology, they captured in story and stone. What if these were not opposites, but reflections? Two halves of a forgotten whole. Consider the cosmic perspective. The same atoms that form the stars also form us. The same vibrations that ripple through quantum fields ripple through our consciousness. When the Egyptians spoke of Maat, the balance of the universe, when the Vedic seers described the dance of creation and destruction, when the Mayans mapped time as cycles rather than lines, were they not echoing the strange truths we now discover in physics? That uncertainty, impermanence, and entanglement are not exceptions, but the very fabric of reality. And yet, science warns us against certainty. Myths warn us against arrogance. The ancients carved stories of floods, towers, and lost civilizations as reminders that knowledge without humility leads to ruin. Modern science echoes the same caution. Every discovery opens doors not just to wonder, but to danger. The forgotten mirror does not only show beauty, it shows responsibility. As we zoom out past ancient stones, past the earth, past the swirling arms of galaxies, we are left with perspective. Civilization, myth, science, history, future, all of it is a brief flicker in the cosmic vastness. And yet, that flicker is luminous, because in it, the universe reflects upon itself. We are that reflection. We are the forgotten mirror. So, what if the ancients already touched the quantum truth we seek today? Perhaps the answer is not whether they knew in formulas or experiments, but whether they intuited what we are only beginning to grasp, that reality is not fixed, but fluid, not simple but layered, not material alone but suffused with meaning. We will likely never know for certain. But perhaps certainty is not the point. The point is wonder. The point is to keep asking, to keep seeking, to hold together science and myth, reason and imagination, as two eyes through which we glimpse the universe. For in the end, the greatest discoveries are not just about the cosmos out there, but about the cosmos within us. The forgotten mirror of reality reflects both, and it is up to us to decide what we will see. And so, the story closes as it began, not with answers, but with questions. Questions that stretch across time, binding us to the ancients, linking us to the future, reminding us that knowledge is not possession, but participation in the great unfolding. The mirror remains, waiting for us to look again.